This is the OTB Television Network.
They're at the top of the stretch, and homeboy Chris turns for home in front. Jackson Bend on the outside. Winslow Homer has running room, and down on the inside is Thank You Philippe. It's Jackson Bend. Winslow Homer on the inside. Winslow Homer and Jackson Bend at the 16th pole. Winslow Homer at the rail. Jackson Bend on the outside. Winslow Homer wins the Holy Bull.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Down the Stretch. Along with my colleague Mike VIETCH, the racing columnist with Saratoga, I'm Mark CUSANO, welcoming you to this morning's program on a clear and cold January Saturday. We will be with you right up until 11 o'clock, and on this morning's show, we've got an announcement from Albany. We've got answers to your emails. During our 3-year-old segment, we'll take a look. You just looked at the stretch run, the Holy Bull, as well as the Lecomte from the fairgrounds. Then today is Sunshine Millions Day, and we've got a trio of guests with starters in that bi-coastal event. In Florida, Dave Vivian, the conditioner of the defending Sunshine Millions turf winner, Soldier's Dancer, will join us. Then we'll go out to California. Michael will have a pair of interviews, first with Jim Cassidy, who's got the usual QT, who has won 6 in a row on turf. But he won't be running on turf this afternoon. He'll be running on synthetic in the Classic. And Bill Morey Jr. from Northern California, who's got Millionaire Bold Chieftain primed for the Classic. So all of that and much, much more if you stay with us for this, our January 30th edition of the program. Partner, good morning.
January finale in a month that you're happy is we put to bed tomorrow, right?
Oh, yes. How was it this morning when you got up in Saratoga?
I just, as you well know, this is not bad weather, and I will not complain about being under the gun from the heat today. So, you know, I'll be at the rec this afternoon after the show if you care to come up and stop by and bring me something to drink after I exercise.
It was just a little chilly in Niskuna this morning,
I'm sure
I can say that. So we've got, looking forward to today's show. We begin this morning's show with an announcement that came as a surprise to me. Governor David Paterson and legislative leaders have agreed on Aqueduct Entertainment Group to run a video lottery terminal casino at Aqueduct Racetrack. Now, there are a number of issues, concerns, and changes which AEG must meet, including raising its upfront payment to the state from $200 million to $300 million. Partner, is this a done deal right now?
Well, I'd like to think that it's a done deal. I mean, in the very short time that this has broken, which was late yesterday afternoon, all of the commentating that's been done, and I'll probably do some myself for tomorrow, suggests that it's not a done deal. I'm going to sort of take the rosy view here and say at least we've finally gotten over the hurdle that the governor has named someone to operate this casino. On the other hand, it's pretty well known in Albany that the people not selected, I might not call them losing bidders yet, are very upset and angry about the process in general. We know that some months ago Steve Wynn pulled out of the process, but at least symbolically something has finally been done by the executive office to kickstart this thing and get it rolling. Now, is it going to flounder? Mark, I don't know. Are there lots of questions about now taking the time to properly vet the designee? Of course there are. What, if anything, is significant about the timing? I really don't know. I thought it was significant in midweek that Penn National, who had the $300 million, at least had offered it, wrote a very, very angry letter to the governor questioning the whole process. But something's been done. The best case scenario is we can move forward. The The worst case scenario is that it's going to get bogged down in Albany details, and I hope it's not the latter, but only time will tell.
So a very important first step that not only does the governor make the announcement on AEG, but he gets the legislative leaders to agree to AEG, which is obviously critical.
Yep.
So let's hope it proceeds from here. All right, we've got 3 emails to read. First from V, and V asks about a wonderful state-bred filly from the mid-1980s by the name of Ann Iron. Partner, what'd you find out about Ann Iron?
Brought back a lot of good memories. Ann Iron was the champion state-bred 3-year-old filly in 1986 in her career. She made 37 starts, won 18 of them, earned over almost $540,000. She's a daughter of Iron Constitution, a state sire who won the Withers and finished second to a pretty good horse named Seattle Slew in the Preakness Stakes. She's a member of the Finger Lakes Hall of Fame. There's a race named for her. She won literally bunches and bunches of stakes. And I do know that she's the mother of at least one good stakes runner named Laken, or Laken, L-A-K-E-N. We may have even done an interview with him. He was trained by Rick Violet, and he was by state sire Scarlet Ibis. What I could not find out, and I'm sorry, and maybe someone will let us know, as a foal of 83, she's now 27. I hope she's still alive and doing well. But there's Ann Iron, what we would call a hickory performer.
Thank you very much, V. And from Nancy. Nancy writes, I was sorry to hear that La Vie Rouge lost her foal in December. I haven't heard anything about her colt born last year, not even what he was named. Could you give us an update, please?
Well, the 2009 colt by Dynaformer is a full brother to, of course, Barbaro and Lentinor and Nicanor. And as a foal of 2009, he has just become a yearling now, so he probably has not been named yet. A good portion of this year will be dedicated to submitting acceptable names to the Jockey Club for that. And I do understand the aborted foal was thought to be a filly, which would have been the first in some time. But for about 5 straight years, she's been bred to Dynaformer for all the obvious reasons. And the 2 brothers have been runners themselves. I don't know if they're going to take it to the upper level, but unnamed as of now, understandably.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Michael, you've got one?
And from Joe, we have Mark and Mike. It is no secret that the Utica, Rome, and Mohawk Valley area has a large number of thoroughbred racing fans. My circle of family and friends considers our group part of this fan base, and we have followed the sport for over 3 generations. Over the past couple years, the addition of some very talented West Point thoroughbred horses with local investors such as Bob Carper of New Hartford, Elgato Malo, Saratoga Russell, Boulder Creek, and Al and Patty Zampano of Whitesboro, reread the footnotes, Middle of the Night and Mr. Fantasy, has added additional excitement to the sport in the area. Following and cheering for these horses with local interest is similar to rooting for my home team or hometown athlete that has made it in the big leagues. The problem is I find it difficult to follow the progress of these horses on a consistent basis, and I was wondering if you could recommend a website I can go to or a publication to subscribe to that will keep me informed of recent workouts, upcoming races, and general updated information on these horses of local interest, as well as all our favorites. Secondly, can you please find anything out on the status of Mr. Fantasy? Can't wait to hear. We have not seen or heard anything about him since his victory in last year's Withers. Love the show, and we'll be watching it for your response. And thank you, Joe, from Frankfurt.
All right, about Mr. Fantasy, who you see on the screen, we just spoke to Terry Finley, the head of West Point Stable, a few moments ago. Mr. Fantasy underwent ankle surgery. He is, where many folks would like to be, in South Florida currently. He had his second workout yesterday. They are planning on running him sometime in the springtime here in New York, and he is now in the Mike Hushin barn. So there's a complete update on Mr. Fantasy. Now, Joe, as far as following these horses, the best thing I can think of would be Stable Mail. And there are a number of organizations that offer free Stable Mail, and what you do is you basically sign up for Stable Mail, type in the horses you want to follow, and I would suggest you go to drf.com, dailyracingform.com. Anytime that horse has a workout, you will receive an email notice. When that horse is entered to run, you will receive a notice. And they used to do this, I don't know if they still do. When the horse runs, they send you a chart on that race. I mean, that's good stuff. So, Joe, I would suggest that you go to drf.com and sign up for Stable Mail. So to Joe, to Nancy, to V, thank you so much for your correspondence this week. And for those of you who would like to correspond with us here at Down the Stretch, here are the ways in which you can do that. Through the United States Postal Service, Down the Stretch, Mark and Mike, Capital District OTB, 510 Smith, here in Schenectady, 12305, or electronically at viewermail@capitalotb.com. And news on Zenyatta, the unbeaten mare and runner-up to Rachel for the 2009 Horse of the Year. She continues to work toward her first start of 2010. Last Monday at Hollywood, the John Sheriff's trained 6-year-old breezed 5 furlongs in a minute and 1/5. Now, the March 13th Santa Margarita may be her starting point, but I will reiterate what I've said. I said on last week's show, that is a handicap. I checked, it's still a handicap. And that seems a little bit unusual to start her in a handicap partner unless they know that the rest of her schedule will not include another handicap. Because let's face it, if she starts the year at 130, which
Minimum.
a racing secretary would have to, he would be embarrassed not to give her at least 130, and there were other handicaps down the road, then it would start to get interesting.
I hope they do it. I hope they accept it, and I hope on her PPs there's a line that says she did the 130 or
Yes,
130 plus
absolutely.
thing for history.
Very good news this past week about Kip DeVille, the last horse to win the Breeders' Cup Mile prior to the Goldakova era. Kip has been battling laminitis, the potentially deadly disease, but according to Michael Ivarone, president of IEAH Stable, Kip is, and I quote, doing
Gosh, I'm
great.
really.
And that is
We
obviously
always
great
need
news.
good news, and that is good news.
Absolutely
Wonderful.
terrific. Not so good news from the Breeders' Cup folks. Pam Blatz-Murph, who has been with the Breeders' Cup since 1982, which is actually 2 years prior to its first running,
That's right.
has had her job eliminated. Pam was the senior vice president of operations and had worked very, very closely with European horsemen. And from what I know, she did an outstanding job.
Well, folks, if you don't know her, and I don't, you just have to look at the charts of everyone and see what kind of European participation we had. She obviously didn't hinder it. She's done a wonderful job.
And sad news, jockey Justin VIETCH died on Thursday at the age of 36. VIETCH, who spent the last years of his career in the Midwest, died from leukemia. He had been battling that disease for a couple of years. All right, our 3-year-old segment begins with news on Buddy Saint, one of the top early season 3-year-olds. He worked last Sunday at Gulfstream, one day after he was originally scheduled to work. Trainer Bruce Levine postponed that Saturday work due to a hard racetrack, but Bruce felt the surface at Gulfstream, I guess on Sunday, was acceptable enough to send the Remsen winner 5/8 and 59 and 1 handily. That was Buddy Saint's 5th work since arriving in Florida. He will likely start next in the February 20th Fountain of Youth. Partner, as far as you know, is Bruce still thinking only 2 preps prior to the
I've seen
Derby?
nothing different. I have not spoken to him since late last year, but it's a very interesting thing that he's doing as far as that goes, but he's supremely confident. This is Bruce's first major try on the Derby Trail,
yeah.
so let's see how this works out. I love the horse.
All right, a couple of 3-year-old races from last Saturday, beginning with a Holy Bull going 1 mile at Gulfstream. Nice field, the favorite at 8-5 from the outside, number 9, Jackson Bend. A winner of his last 5, all at Calder. This is his first start for trainer Nick Zito. The co-second choices in the race, number 6, Winslow Homer, and number 8, Aconite. Winslow Homer, a 12.5 length winner of a Philly Park allowance in last, while Aconite, 3rd in last year's Hopeful, 2nd in the Breeders' Futurity, and 5th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now, the early pace was quick and contested, and surprisingly to me, included Aconite. Now, up on or close to the pace, you've got number 1, Thank You Philippe, who got rushed up after breaking a half step slow. Number 2, Homeboy Chris, Aconite, and widest of all is Jackson Bend. Traveling very nicely in behind rivals is the eventual winner, number 6, Winslow Homer. And turning for home, Winslow Homer would split rivals while saving ground, as Jackson Ben will continue wide all the way around the turn, and in the end, Winslow Homer would prevail by 3/4 of a length to capture the Holy Bull.
I really love this performance. I did a very detailed and thorough analytical study of the past performances. I picked him because, after all, Tony Dutroux has won a couple of 3-year-old stakes this year. I figured, what the heck? About everything that you'd want to see a guy do, he did. As Mark pointed out, the pace was pretty quick, so to get engaged early, he made a strong move on the backstretch. He then went between horses. He then settled on the far turn. He then waited to find room. When he didn't find enough room, he decided to split horses at the top of the stretch and held safe Jackson Ben. I thought it was a wonderful performance. And Mark, in my opinion, for a lot of horses on a comeback performance, it could have been something that had a lot of wrong things happen, like the jockey go too quick down the backstretch to get involved. This is a pretty professional performance. As I said a couple of weeks ago in the show, folks, when you're looking at these races, you better get used to seeing past performance lines from Philadelphia Park. There's some very good racing there November, December. The purses in many aspects are better than in New York. Here's another example. Tony Dutroux is absolutely on fire. He's had Los Deo in the Count Fleet. He's had a Little Warm in the Spectacular Bid. I thought it was a wonderful performance. A couple of other notes. If you're looking for family notes, this is the family of Met Mile winner Wild Rush. I think it's always significant when there's a weight spread, and I believe Jackson Ben gave 4 pounds in his return, so I don't think he ran too terribly bad. He spotted 4. I think our guy had a more recent race, so there might have been a bit of a condition edge. A disappointment in the race. Mark said it when they were going down the backstretch. I thought the Aconite was a big disappointment in here. But this was a very, in my opinion, very sharp comeback that had about 3 pitfalls in the race that could have gone the wrong way.
I think both the first and second finishers ran quite well. Now, 23 and 4 for an opening quarter might not sound terribly fast, but it is at Gulfstream going a mile. There is no run up to the timing pole. And if you recall, when Quality Road came back going a mile, in I believe the Howell's Hope, I think he went 25. So 23 and 4 is legitimate. The second quarter was 22 and 4. What the heck is Aconite doing on the pace? I mean, unless he was so keyed up being fresh, I have no idea. But I was shocked that he was there. Prior to the Holy Bull, winning trainer Tony Dutroux said, you know, I don't have any major expectations in here.
Quite negative, actually.
Because a one-turn mile isn't really his game. Well, if that's not his game, and he's going to get better stretching out, well, that's very, very good news for Winslow Homer. How about owner Rick Porter? I mean, this has been now, what, 3 or 4 years, annually, has a high-quality 3-year-old, sometimes male, sometimes female, but whoever he is using as an advisor is doing one heck of a job picking out these colts.
I agree.
And Tony Dutroux did a heck of a job having him prepared. And as Michael mentioned, just another Philadelphia Park runner. This never, ever happened in the past, with the exception of Smarty Jones, I guess. Now we seem to have all these Philadelphia Park runners come to bigger venues and win these major stakes races. I thought it was a good effort from Jackson.
So did I. Oh,
he
yes,
was
so did I.
wide all the way.
Yep.
I thought he kept grinding. The thing is, and Jackson Ben is a wonderful horse, but he's by hear no evil. I mean, how far is this colt going to want to go?
I haven't taken a peek yet.
You know,
I don't know.
I just don't know how far he wants to go.
The only answer is that the guy who's training him will get him to go maybe a bit farther than his paper says, but you can't overcome some things.
Williams Kitten rallied for 3rd. Some people were excited about that. I was not. He rallied into just a blistering pace. Thank You, Philippe was not ridden well by Eddie Castro. It's not good to have the rail going a mile, and Eddie didn't do a very good job. Thank You, Philippe was a sneaky good 4th in there, but I thought it was a good effort by both the winner as well as the runner-up, and they are both scheduled to come back in the Fountain of Youth going 2 turns. Now, at the fairgrounds, the mile and 40-yard Lecomte, where the 2-to-1 favorite was number 1 Maximus Ruler, racing first time in front bandages. Now, with a short run to the first turn, the inside post should be quite beneficial, but it really didn't turn out that way. Surprisingly, jockey Francisco Torres sent Maximus Ruler to the front, and with that, he came under immediate and constant pressure from DePaul, a 36-1 shot. Now, when you're probably best in a stakes race, one of the last things you want is to come under intense pressure, particularly from a colt who has little chance. Now, the pace was quick, 23-2, 46-4. And in the end, it would cost Maximus Ruler the win, as the late-running Ron the Greek, number 11, would benefit and rally for a 1.5 length victory over a game Maximus Ruler and another late runner, number 8. Let's get it on, Mon, to capture the LeCompte.
Maximus Ruler was very, very game in here. I fancied Worldly in here. That was certainly a disappointment to me. The winner is absolutely devoid of early speed, and he certainly figured to, I didn't like him to figure it at all, but he certainly figured from the long, long stretch at Fairgrounds. But as you see him getting underway here, I've got to say one thing. He is a big, lumbering, it might not quite be fair to call plotter because he's got some speed, but he's a big, lumbering colt, and he just clearly relished this distance, you know, this long run down the Fairgrounds stretch here. And he's a guy that, well, you know, I think he's had 4 starts. This is his 4th different track, so he doesn't really have to carry it wherever he goes. I thought your point about Maximus Ruler is right on. The best guy probably was there. They both did some jumping late in the stretch. I don't know what that was about. The winner, if he's gonna have stamina, doesn't look to me from underneath. It looks like Full Mandate on the top. Full Mandate's an AP Indy, a beautiful, beautiful family. It's the family of Creme Fraiche winner, the Jockey Club Gold Cup et al. But this LeCompte wasn't, I thought, going in anyways, one of the better lineups that's been in the LeCompte. I don't know what they're waiting for, maybe the next one down the road, the Risen Star. But talk about coming from out of the clouds. Here it is.
Well, he is a confirmed one-run deep
is.
closer.
Yep.
Ron the Greek made his first 3 starts at Hoosier, Delta Downs, and Remington Park.
Okay, yeah.
You know, you can get to Louisville, Kentucky on the first Saturday in May a lot of different ways, and that would be a different way. I thought Cisco Torres did a poor job with Maximus Ruler. All you have to do is take back off a horse who's got very little chance, and you're probably going to win. The negative on Maximus Ruler, and this is a negative to me, and granted, Street Sense won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile by 100 lengths, first time in front bandages, but 95 out of 100 times, first time front bandages is a real negative, so we'll have to watch for that. All right. We are up to our first break on this end of January edition of the program. Thank you so much for having joined us. When Michael and I return, we will kick off our trio of guests by going to sunny and warm South Florida and welcoming in Dave Vivian, the trainer of Soldier's Dancer. As we go to this break, on the LeCompte undercard, the Louisiana Handicap, it featured a couple of very nice 3-year-olds from last year. Frisian Fire, he was the 7-2 people forget this. He was the favorite in the Kentucky Derby last year. Frisian Fire. He was the 19-10 choice in here. And General Quarters from the 1-horse stable of Tom McCarthy, the winner of last year's Bluegrass, was 2-1. Both of these colts making their seasonal debut. So we're going to take a look at the Louisiana Handicap going to the break. Michael and I will be back with trainer Dave Vivian right after these messages.
Half mile for Frisian Fire, 48-2. Going into the far turn, Frisian Fire by 3/4 of a length. Brian Hernandez Jr. has Secret Getaway right there in a position to challenge at the 5/16. General Quarters now eases off the rail for Robbie Alvarado, and Fundy floated 4 deep down the shadow of the quarter pole. Good and Lucky still has 4 lengths to find, and Corgal Cat is last into the stretch. 3/4 for Frisian Fire, 1:12-1. So Frisian Fire's made every yard. Frisian Fire trying to see it out in the Louisiana Handicap and still holding General Quarters by 3. Frisian Fire kept on. General Quarters is fully extended. Good and Lucky has come to 3rd. At the Fairgrounds, Frisian Fire! Frisian Fire scores. Frisian Fire made all. General Quarters 2nd, and Good and Lucky 3rd, beaten by 8. Frisian Fire in 1:43 1/5 seconds.
This is the OTB Television Network.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. Mike Vietch to my left. I'm Mark CUSANO. And the Louisiana Handicap went to Frisian Fire for Steve Asmussen and Sean Bridgmahan. Controlled the pace and handily won by a length and 3/4 over General Quarters. First guest this morning has the defending champion in the Sunshine Millions turf in Soldier's Dancer, and he joins us live via telephone from what I assume to be sunny and warm South Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dave Vivian. Dave, Mark, and Mike welcoming you to Down the Stretch.
Thank you very much. It's very warm here and a beautiful day.
Okay, David.
Well, Dave, it's about 5 degrees here right now, and I think our audience, before we get to Soldier's Dancer, I think our audience is going to be very interested in your answer to my first question. Where are you originally from?
Schenectady, New York.
Schenectady.
All right, Dave.
Well, Dave, we're glad to
That's
have you on the
wonderful.
phone. It's about 75 degrees cooler here. Let's get to Soldier's Dancer. The old boy is 6 years old now. How's he doing?
He's doing very well. He's doing very well. We kind of missed there was supposed to be a race in between here, and they canceled the race. So we're trying to go with almost 3 months between races. But he hasn't missed the beat, so I'm pretty confident that he's fit enough.
Dave, I noticed his races last year, at least, were pretty well spaced. He only ran 5 times last year. Does that mean that you're dealing with some issues with him?
He does have problems, like most horses that run hard. He does have problems, but my stepson takes care of him, and he puts a lot of work into him. He's a horse that requires one person to take care of him, and he responds to the treatment. That's a good thing about it. And he's going into the race good and sound.
Well, he certainly does respond. Dave, he is so ultra consistent on turf, he seems to fire for you every time.
He has never missed a beat. He's never, ever disappointed us, and that's rare in this business. Usually they'll have a bad day, but this horse, he gives it all he has every time he runs.
Our audience is about to take a look at a piece of his last start, the Bonnie Heath. As we pick it up going to the far turn, he is last and he is wide in a slow-paced race. Dave,
Right.
That's not normally the ingredients to a victory. Talk about this performance.
Well, what it is, he was just hands over them horses. I mean, everything was against him, but he was the class of the race. And the jockey knew that there was no pace in the race, and we had him 4 or 5 lengths off the lead instead of 15 lengths off the lead. And his class made him beat them horses. He was just a better horse than them horses.
All right, how'd he come out of the race? How's he been training to this afternoon?
He's been training well. Last Sunday, I vanned him from Calder over to Gulfstream, and I worked him 3/4 of a mile on the turf course around the dogs, and he worked very good.
Davey's winless at Gulfstream. He's only raced there a few times, and he was second in the Sunshine Millions turf a couple of years ago. I mean, should we read anything into the fact that he's never won at Gulfstream?
No, he's run very well at Gulfstream. That race when he got beat by a horse of Bill Mott's, who was a very good horse. And he did get in some trouble that day, too.
Dave, in looking at today's race, not an abundance of early speed. Jet Propulsion, who you may have trained at one time, Jet Propulsion looks like the lone speed. What are your main concerns going into this afternoon's turf?
Well, the jockey I have riding my horse, he's rode him 8 or 9 times, and he's a professional rider, and he reads the form, and I don't have to give him no instructions. He knows about that horse, and he's not going to let that horse get too far in front of us. That horse was claimed off me for $25,000, Jet Propulsion, quite a few years ago. And he is a tough horse when he can make the lead easy, and I'm tickled to death that he's got the outside post. But they're going to have to use him pretty good to get the lead. If he was 1 or 2, he would really be tough to beat. But I think from the outside, they're going to have to gun him, and that's going to take something out of him.
Dave, before we let you go, 2 weeks ago at Tampa Bay Downs, you won the Gasparilla Stakes with Diva Delight. She's number 3 here in the lavender silks and the blue cap between rivals. Talk about your filly.
Well, that filly there I bought in partnership with Mr. Batiste for $32,000. And before that race, I signed a contract to sell her for for 300,000, and the vet wouldn't pass her 2 days before that race. So I said, okay. We put her on the van and took her up there, and she got bounced around in between horses, and everything was against her, but she still won because she was the best horse, and she's a very nice filly.
Dave, what are the immediate plans for Diva Delight? Where will we see her next?
We're going to take her up there February 13th. I have a race up there in Tampa. I don't know the name of it, but it's 1 mile and 40 yards, and it's probably be the same horse that she's been running against.
And that would likely be a prep for the Florida Oaks?
Well, I don't know about the Florida Oaks. I mean, I think she's kind of I face reality, and I think she's kind of in between. I think she's a decent filly, but I don't want to overmatch her. I'll try to keep her where she's the best horse, and I don't have to chase a bunch of $1 million horses.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dave, it was really nice to have you on the program this morning. Welcome back to Schenectady, even if it's only by telephone. And with the weather outside, it's better that you did it by telephone. All the best this afternoon with Soldier's Dancer in the Sunshine Millions turf. We're looking forward to seeing him defend his title this afternoon.
Okay, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Dave. Dave Vivian, ladies and gentlemen. And I would guess that every trainer would love to have a horse like Soldier's Dancer in the barn.
Takes care of the stable.
He
Takes care of the
just
stable.
fires
Absolutely.
every time.
Yeah.
Now, the negative this afternoon is the lack of early pace. But they are running the race with a rail out at 108 feet, and that does help the deep closers. But it's a funny race because almost the entire field are either mid-pack runners or deep closers, and Jet Propulsion is going to be alone on the lead. So it's going to be an interesting race. Thank you so much to Dave. And we are up to our next break on this morning's January 30th edition of the program. Thank you so much for having joined us. When Michael and I return, we will be heading out to California. Trainer Jim Cassidy has a wonderful runner in the usual QT. Since being put on turf, he's won 6 in a row. The interesting thing about this afternoon is he's not running on turf. They're going to synthetic for the Sunshine Millions Classic, and Michael will talk to Jim Cassidy when we come back from the break. As we go to the break, the Palos Verdes mark the return of the 2009 Breeders' Cup Sprint hero, Dancing in Silks. He is number 1 in here, and he is prepping for a start in the Dubai Golden Shaheen, which will be, of course, this year run at Maiden on synthetic. He is the 90 cent to the dollar favorite. So we'll take a look at the Palos Verdes going to the break, and Michael and I will be back with Jim Cassidy right after these messages.
Past the half mile they go, and Eaton's Gift just in front. Kinsale King is right there second. Ventana on the far side. Then it's 3 lengths back to Dancing in Silks in fourth. They've been followed by Paul's Hope. Supreme Summit now has 9 to make up, and it's 4 more to Quietly Mine. 5/16 to go. Eaton's Gift is taken on early by Kinsale King. Ventana, 3 of them in a line now. Dancing in Silks in with a shot fourth, and Dancing in Silks coming after them now. Paul's Hope is right there. Supreme Summit running on late. They're at the top of the lane, wide open. Ventana, Kinsale King is right there. Dancing in Silks, Paul's Hope, and Supreme Summit extreme outside. Dancing in Silks coming gamely now. Ventana's still there, as is Kinsale King. Kinsale King at the rail. Ventana's right there. Dancing in Silks, but it's going to be Kinsale King all half. And Kinsale King has won it. Ventana was second, Dancing in Silks third, and Supreme Summit finishes fourth.
This is the OTB Television Network.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. Mike Veach to my left. I'm Mark Casano. Our thanks to Dave Vivian once again for having joined us. And the Palos Verdes went to Kinsale King 3 in a row since going to trainer Carl O'Callahan. Martine Pedroza by a half over Ventana, with Dancing in Silks, who appeared to be in need of the race, third. Kinsale King, a 5-year-old, was making only his 7th career start. Now, to introduce our second guest of the morning, here's Michael.
And indeed, and our thanks also go to trainer Jim Cassidy, the first of 2 guests this morning dealing with the Sunshine Millions Classic at Santa Anita this afternoon, and he will send out the usual QT. And Jim, if you're there, I think I'll surprise you with my first question. Okay, you've won 6 straight on the grass. Why are you going to the Pro Ride today for this event, Jim?
Well, it was a question of shipping, and it was a question of we're going to eventually try and get him on the Pro Ride anyway. So we thought it would be a good opportunity.
And Jim, welcome very much to our studio this morning in Schenectady. Jim, do you have any concerns going back to a different surface for this race today?
Well, I mean, yeah, certainly. I mean, you know, I know he handles the surface fine. I don't know if he's as good on it as he is on the turf, but it'll certainly show that today one way or the other.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, keep going. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I just thought it was got with the owners, and we thought it was a good chance to give him a try. And if this works out, maybe we'll go to the big cap.
That was going to be one of my questions. Jim, I understand that some years ago you claimed his mother lunge for $20,000 at Hollywood Park. I think that's a really neat story. I think our audience would like to hear, if you'll recollect your thoughts about why did you go in and get her that day?
Well, we were looking for a horse to claim, and she looked like a good offer, so we went after her. She did have some issues. I think I ran her once or twice, and she ran pretty good. And the funny thing about it was that I told him we couldn't run her again, and somebody offered to buy her, and he decided not to sell. He said, no, that's not enough. They offered her like $30,000, and he said, no, I want 40, and well, then she's had this baby, so.
I'm pretty glad about that.
Pretty funny story. I mean, it's funny how, you know, luck, it's an amazing thing.
Well, for our audience who may not have a paper available, the baby he's talking about has now earned over $500,000 and is in a $500,000 race this afternoon. Jim, I notice on the past performance lines going back to last June of '09, there was a break of 8 months there for the usual QT. Any particular reason for that?
I did have, I had a few problems, nothing serious, but I thought the horse had a lot of talent, and I explained to them that it would be best to stop on him for a while and just let him mature a little bit. And that's basically what happened. I mean, it was nothing really serious, but there was some inflammation in places I didn't like to see. So and he came back fabulous.
Well, oh, by all means. Well, in fact, since then, and we're going to shortly take a look at his last effort, you know, since then you've had a steady progression of races, good races, including your last, the Sir Beaufort, which we're going to take a look at here in just a moment. For our audience, the usual QT is number 6. He will be 4th at the top of the screen as we're going down the backstretch. Jim, talk to our audience about this performance on, I believe it was opening day, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I had a thought about running him against 3-year-olds for the last time, and he just so keen. I mean, well, his last 6 races have been his last 7 races have been sparkling. I thought the Hollywood Derby was probably his best race.
Mm-hmm.
This race here, although it was a good race, I thought he was tailing off a bit. And that's why I opted to wait a full month or so, 5 weeks or so, to run him back. But he's come back good. So now he's in good shape again.
Well, that leads to this afternoon. I noticed that the work last week is 5/8 and 59 and 4. So my final question for you, Jim, is how did that go? And along with it, how is he coming up to today's performance?
Oh, good. I think the endurance factor is good for him. I mean, I don't think I have a problem as far as his endurance, and that's why I worked him a quick 5/8 to try and put a little more speed in him. And today's race, the setup is probably going to work out better that he has a little more gas in him early, because there isn't much speed in the race but one horse.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I talked to Victor yesterday. He's thinking about, he's hoping somebody else goes with that other horse, the 8 horse, but we're not sure anybody will. We might have to push him a little bit ourselves, and hopefully that'll work out. It's a tactical race, and we're going to have to make the right moves, certainly.
Well, Jim, I'll tell you, we've really enjoyed the conversation with you this morning. Appreciate your time a great deal. Good luck this afternoon with the usual QT and the Millions Classic, okay?
Thanks very much, man.
Have you next time. Ladies and
Bye-bye.
gentlemen, James Cassidy, the usual QT, can't wait to see after 6 straight on turf how he goes back to the synthetic today. As he pointed out, not an awful record, but I think this opens up other options if he does very well this afternoon. So that's what we're going to have to see.
This is the new era of racing where you take a proven, and he is a proven, at least at the 3-year-old level, outstanding grass horse.
Yeah.
And instead of shipping across country, and he would be favored in a $300,000 stakes race.
Yes, he would.
You stay home and you try synthetic.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee if it were dirt at Santa Anita, he wouldn't be running on dirt.
That's a good point.
They're willing to try synthetic. Now, he is the 2.5 to 1 favorite in this afternoon's Classic. I personally think this is, and can he win? Of course he can win. I just don't think you want him at a short price on a different surface. I really don't. And you know what surprised me the most about your interview? When he said he didn't think there was much speed in the Classic. I think there's a lot of speed in the Classic.
Interesting, I don't. And as a matter of fact, he actually, that's going to be one of my questions for Mr. Morey in the next interview. I'm looking at what Jim said. I'm interested in your point, but it's going to be something I'm going to pursue with Bill Morey and Bold Chieftain.
My God, I handicapped the race, and I like a horse in here, but I'm worried that he's got speed, and there's going to be too much of his speed.
This is going to be fun to hear what
That's
Bill
interesting.
says.
Thank you so much to Jim, who's a big New York Yankees fan, as you saw in the shot. And we are up to our final break on this January 30th edition of the program. Thank you so much for having joined us. I hope you're staying warm. When Michael and I return, our final guest of the morning, he is based in Northern California. He has got a really neat horse who has become a millionaire in Bold Chieftain, and he will be one of those contesting this afternoon's Sunshine Millions Classic, and that's Bill Morey Jr. As we go to this break, let's turn the clocks back 1 year and take a look at an upset in the 2009 Classic at Gulfstream Park. So we'll take a look at that, and Michael and I will be back with Bill Morey right after these messages.
Around the far turn and finally made it, continues to lead the way. It's a Bird, continues to press, and he's a bit closer now. Medzendikron is third to the outside. Hey Burn, Macho Again's come under a ride. Dream Maestro is down on the inside. Then Famous Patriot atoned, and now Delightful Kiss is beginning his run. He's still last, but here he comes. He's going to have to circle the field once again as they turn for home. And It's a Bird is the one to catch. He's opened up here. It's a Bird has a 4-length lead. Down the center of the track, Delightful Kiss is trying to make up late ground. Then it's finally made it. It's a Bird has built a big lead here. And It's a Bird and Julian Leperoux will win the Sunshine Millions Classic over Dry Martini. And then Delightful Kiss and Dream Maestro.
This is the OTB Television Network.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. Mike Veitch to my left. I'm Mark CUSANO. Our thanks to Jim Cassidy once again for having joined us in the 2009 Sunshine Millions Classic. In an upset, went to It's a Bird for Marty Wolfson and Julian by 5 1/4. This week, It's a Bird suffered a fractured sesamoid in a workout at Calder and has been retired. To introduce our final guest of the morning, back to Michael.
And following Mr. Cassidy for the Sunshine Millions is trainer Bill Morey Jr., and he will send out the 7-year-old Bull Chieftain this afternoon in the Sunshine Millions Classic at Santa Anita. So, Bill, if you're with us right now, welcome to Down the Stretch in upstate New York, Schenectady OTB with Michael Veitch and Mark CUSANO.
Okay, boys, I'm all set.
Well, Bill, glad to have you. Listen, Bill, I'd just like to open with, we've got a wonderful 7-year-old horse here. I mean, he has earned $1 million the old-fashioned way. Tell our audience what it's like to have him around the barn and how he takes to his training as his age escalates.
Yeah, well, you know, this horse loves his profession. That's why he's still going at this age. He enjoys training. He enjoys racing. We just tracked him this morning and came into the paddock and just snorting and breathing fire. He's ready to go, and he loves what he does.
That is really wonderful to hear. Bill, before we visited you when we were during our commercial break, Mark and I were having an interesting discussion about the way this race looks. For me, I think it's very fascinating because I don't see a heck of a lot of speed here. I see Campari as one of the few threats. I see, speed going 2 turns at Santa Anita is not standing up too well, at least to this point. So I'd like to ask you, how does this race flow shape up for you today?
Well, you know, I read the form pretty hard last night, and it's kind of a mystery race. I think there's turf stars in here that are going to have to bring their game to this synthetic stuff. There's horses that are really stretching from 6.5 to 1.1 miles, and that's a pretty good stretch. I see the same as you. I don't see a lot of big speed. I do see a couple horses up there, but then I think there's going to be a pretty good pack of horses, maybe laying 3 or 4 back, and I think we'll be maybe just behind that pack a little bit. And my hope is that some of these guys can't make the 1.1 miles, and we're going to be chugging along at the end.
You sure can. There's no doubt about that. It really is a fascinating field. Bill, you're coming off a 4th in the Grade 2 San Pasquale. That followed 3 straight for your guy, and we're going to pick up the action in just a moment when we get it on the screen. You're number 2, 4th at the top of the screen. You're down the backstretch. Bill, talk about Bull Chieftain this day in the San Pasquale.
Well, you know, we got tangled up with that 2 to 5 shot that won the Breeders' Cup. He was just really rank, and they tried to rate him, and he was just running off. And by gosh, we kind of flushed a little early, and we got alongside of him, and my horse picked up the bit a little bit early. And I'm taking nothing away from the winner. The race set up nice for him, but it might have cost us 2nd and 3rd money, which was quite a bit of money in a race like that by flushing a little early. We got beat a nose for 3rd, and about maybe a long neck for 2nd. And I think we got into the game just a tad earlier than we wanted to.
And here we are turning for home. He's a very, very admirable running. Bill, how did he come out of this race?
Oh, he's good. He's really sharp. The horse is, knock on wood, he's just been healthy as a horse can be. He's in good shape. His attitude's good. He's eating well. So I can't say that this horse is going to run a race today.
Bill, before we let you go, I'm going to ask a question not totally related to this, and I hope it's not putting you on the spot. I don't think it is. Those of us here in New York, we follow the stories about the pro-ride synthetic surface quite a bit. We hate it when we lose race days out there. Bill, is there a consensus developing, if you can say out there, amongst the California owners and trainers that we're either going to go back to dirt or maybe go to a new synthetic? Can you share your thoughts on that with us?
Certainly.
Yeah.
I base out of Northern California, and I tell you, this stuff that we have up there drains so good.
All right.
I mean, we just had a vicious storm last week, and it looked like it hadn't even rained on it. Now, in Southern California, which I pop in here occasionally, they don't have the same. They have a different synthetic. It doesn't drain as well. And I don't know if they really need it down here because they don't have many rainy days. I agree with you. It's awful when you have to cancel your card. But I'm for it up north. I just think they need to tweak it more. They need to know how to maintain it. We have cut down on certain injuries, and we've picked up on different injuries.
Yep.
But all in all, I think it's something we should work with up north anyways. I can't say for these fellas here. I think that the majority here want to go to dirt.
Well, Bill, I have to tell you, we absolutely enjoyed our talk this morning. Thanks so much for your time, and good luck today with Bold Chieftain, and I hope that we get a chance to speak again.
Oh, me too. You guys are very nice. Thanks a lot.
Take care, ladies and gentlemen. Bill Morey sends out Bold Chieftain, and I have followed Bold Chieftain in his career. He is a fascinating old-time warrior, and this is really a great race to look at and try to come to some conclusion on.
Listen, I think it's a terrific
And you're a
race.
pro.
I think it's a terrific race to handicap.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a terrific race to bet, unless the horse you like is a major underlay, which I don't think is going to happen in here. But I do disagree with everybody on the early pace factor, and here's why. I happen to like Campari, who is coming off a pair of turf sprints, my favorite type of race, now stretching out to 9 furlongs. Now, if the pro ride surface at Santa Anita is death on speed, then he's not going to have a chance, because I want him in front. He's got a lot of speed, but he relaxes in front. He doesn't get keyed up. My problem is number 3, Enriched. Now, they ran against each other in a turf sprint last time, and Campari beat him to the front. But Enriched on synthetic has sprinter's speed. And since they got beat by Campari last time, giving Campari the lead, I'm worried that Doug O'Neill says to Michael Bays, "You gun today." I went, that's my concern. But if Campari makes the lead, and again, if it's not death on front runners at Santa Anita today, and he's not under intense pressure, I got to tell you, Marty Jones is having a fabulous meet at Santa Anita. Everything he is saddling is running big, and I think Campari's sitting on a big race. Now, I mean, there's a Canadian in here. You gotta like Palladio.
Well, I mean, why did you bring it up? The answer is yes, I do. I'm going to bet $2 on him today. I mean, this kind of race is way beyond my powers. I mean, we're out there, we're on synthetic, we got all kinds of things going on. You think it's a legitimate fast pace. I think...
Which is going to benefit you.
I think it may be a pace that's maybe more a pace that's a slower, phony pace. I love the race, but yeah, I don't trouble my powers. Yes, I'm betting Palladio today.
Well, do we have the first cigar bet of the year?
Don't even bring it up.
Right.
Don't even bring it up. This is, you are going to suffer for a long time this year.
Earlier today, I guess that's the proper term, earlier today, because it was Saturday in Australia. Cannonball became, what I read, I had no idea this was the case. Cannonball became the first American-trained horse ever to run in Australia.
That's a huge statement, but it's probably true. I mean, yeah.
In the Lightning Stakes, a 5-furlong turf sprint. They have those in Australia, too. And unfortunately, he ran 9th of 11.
Oh, dear.
With a very unusual jockey, in my opinion, in Pat Valenzuela. That I don't understand. Tomorrow at Gulfstream, champion She Be Wild makes her 3-year-old debut. It's also her first ever start on dirt in Gulfstream's Forward Gal at 7/8. It's a big field, and she faces, among others, the locally owned Elalea from Starlight Stables. In tomorrow's 6th race at Gulfstream, it is an entry-level allowance contest for 3-year-olds at 9 furlongs. It's a fascinating race. Everybody's talking about the Bee and Cone horse coming from the Breeders' Cup. I want you to keep your eye on Drosselmeyer, who broke his maiden in his 4th career start in last at Churchill. But that was his first ever start on dirt. Billy Mott ran him twice, I think, at Saratoga on the proper surface, then ran him on synthetic at Keeneland, went to dirt at Churchill, and he looked very good This could be an
I
interesting.
wrote about him last fall
Yeah,
after the
I
Churchill race.
think he's a distorted humor. I'm
He
not
is a
100
distorted
he?
humor. That he is, yep.
So that's coming up tomorrow at
Yeah.
Gulfstream. Next Saturday at Aqueduct, the Whirlaway, featuring 85 and a 50, that blazing fast 3-year-old from Gary Contessa. We will attempt to have Gary on the show next Saturday
Good.
morning. Out at Santa Anita, the Robert B. Lewis for 3-year-olds. All the guys I know in Southern California like American Lion.
Okay.
Everybody loves American Lion. I love Tiz Chrome,
Okay.
who's done nothing but sprint so far. And he, of course, will have to go 2 turns in the Robert B. Lewis. I really like Tiz Chrome. And also the Las Virgenes, where Blind Luck makes her 3-year-old debut next Saturday. And next Saturday at Gulfstream, a paid public workout for Quality Road in the Grade 1 Don. I have no idea who could beat him. Not a clue.
I have to agree with that. I mean, that return was just
Have
flawless.
any
And
idea.
he's about as home as a horse
Yeah.
can be at Gulfstream
Yeah.
Park. So.
And there's a pair of
Yeah.
turf stakes on that February 6th card as well. So that's coming up over the next week. Time to thank all the folks who helped get this week's show on the air. Dan Hayes directed, and Pete Persico and Kurt Flick and Pat Peretta, our associate producer Julie Hoxie. And special thanks to this morning's guests. Dave Vivian, getting ready with Soldier's Dancer to defend his title in the Sunshine Millions turf, and to Jim Cassidy, who's got the usual QT, and to Bill Morey Jr., who's got Bull Chieftain for the Sunshine Millions Classic at Santa Anita. So have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
No cigar bet, huh? You got Palladio, that Canadian monster?
Believe me, I'm waiting for the right day.
Yeah, you're waiting for the right time, all right. Okay, have a great weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, stay warm. As always, thank you so very much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. We appreciate it. Enjoy all the racing action, literally from coast to coast, this weekend here at Capitol. Have a wonderful upcoming week. And from all of us here at Down the Stretch, we'll see you next week.